website.
Sorry, Bonnie, I wasn't recording any of that. Okay. But start here. This is a good place to start recording.
If you hop on to our website and put the /ARPA, which for clarification, I just want to say that ARPA stands for the American Rescue Program Act. I think I nailed that. Chelsea, tell me if I messed that up.
It's pretty close. The American Rescue Plan Act. Very close.
Plan Act. Okay. So you will get, when you get to there, you scroll down a bit and you get to this portion of the page. And this should address a lot of your questions. And we actually have a frequently asked questions page, which I'm continually updating. The proposal submission form, which I will suggest to you that you print this PDF so that you can read ahead as you go ahead through the application process. And then to submit, to get into the portal, you click here and next. I want to point out that this login process is for the person that's going to complete the application. We have another place in the application where we're asking about other people working on the project, but this login is for the person who's going to be doing the application. And I'm going to show you these screens in a second where you put your username, create an account. And guess what? I duplicated. No, I didn't duplicate the slide.
You have to click on the one with the bus.
That's right. So when you click the Submit a Proposal button, it's going to take you directly into the site. So let's take a tour. And I wanted to just point out that there's also video and written tutorials directly on the site, and I'll show you where those are. When you click that Submit a Proposal button, this will be the first thing you see. Now, because I already have an account, I'm in there, but here's the tutorials, and you're going to click Create New Account. And when you get to the next screen, I wanted to point out, do not use the browser's back button because it will delete your registration information. At the bottom of this page where you can't see, there's a button that says Next and one that says Previous. So if you ever have to back up in this process, use the Previous button. Don't use your back button. Also, if you're partnering with a fiscal sponsor, your fiscal sponsor should be the one completing the application on your organization's behalf. So here you go. You're creating your new account, and you're going to put in your organization name, your EIN, all those things that they always ask you when you're creating new accounts. And this is, as I said before, for the person who's going to be completing the application. The system is going to send you a confirmation email. That's what this screen will look like. And I have to move our pictures over so I can see the other side. And you'll see there's the continue button down in the right-hand side. And you'll have to click one of these things. I've received the email or continue without checking. If you click continue without checking and you're not able to move ahead, that means you didn't get the email. So you might want to check your email box and make sure that you get that. Then you get to the good stuff, the actual application, the meat and potatoes. And you're going to see in this right-hand corner of the screen that talks about the actual grant, where it says apply. Now I have to tell you that threw me for a loop because I'm like, well, I'm not applying yet. I don't want to hit apply. When you get to the end, there'll be a button that says submit. And that's when you're ready to send everything in. So you click the apply button. But I want to point out before we go further this is the grant awards, and it's just kind of giving you a basic overview. And the RFP period is that request for proposal is until March 13th, and the deadline is the deadline. So when you click that continue button, this is what you get. And you will see here that it says to please note this round of funding is limited to assistance to Prince William County residents only. Organizations that serve other communities may be headquartered elsewhere, but they must provide services to Prince William County residents to be eligible for consideration. Residents of the city of Manassas and Manassas Park are not eligible for this round of funding. So as you go, let me back up a little bit. So you'll go through the application process. It is divided into two sections. One is the organizational section where you put in all that standard information. And there's another section for the project itself. And that's where you'll put in the project budget, who's going to be working on the project, who's going to be responsible for reporting. We've got places to submit that or to enter that. So if you think you're ready to submit, remember there's no editing once you click on the submit button. So use previous at the bottom of each page to go back, and there's a little edit icon. I'm waving my hand, you can't see that. There's a little edit icon with a pencil. That's the hardest thing about being on a Zoom, because I'm usually, walking around and waving my hands and gesturing. Can't really do that. To advance, you use the next button at the bottom of the page. And the really cool thing about this grant portal is there's a save button at the bottom of each page. So if you're working on it and you need to take a phone call or go to a meeting, eat lunch, hit the save button and you can come right back to where you left off. And there's no time limit. I mean, if you've ever done federal grants, it's like you have to do it all in an hour and a half, and there's a time limit and you can't save it and come back and all kinds of ugly stuff, but this is not like that. So some tips and tricks, and I've mentioned a couple of these as we've gone on. The application is divided into organization information and project information. The applicant may not be the person who is responsible for reporting. So there is a question in there in the project section that asks for the contact information of that individual, because we'll need to stay in touch with them to be able to keep up with our reporting. Additionally, there's a human resources question that's asking about staffing for the actual project. We're going to be asking, who's going to be doing the actual work, because they're not always the same person. Sometimes they are, but sometimes there's 3 or 4 different people working on a project. So we'll be requesting that. So that's just things for you to think of as you're moving forward. The text box limits are by character, not by word. You cannot advance by clicking next if required fields are incomplete. So use the save and come back to fill in the gaps. Print the application from that PDF that's on our website so you can read ahead, so you can kind of plan what you want to say in each box. And save yourself some agony by typing your narratives into Word and then cutting and pasting. And that way you can be sure of your character counts. Okay, I thought I had more tips and tricks.
That's a lot of tips and tricks.
Okay. I feel like I forgot something.
Maybe when you go in the demo, it'll remind you.
Okay. So connect with us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and sign up to get our newsletter. If you don't get our newsletter, you are missing out on all the cool stuff. So you need to go in on our website and sign up to get the newsletter. And then you'll be the first to know everything. Okay, before we go to actually the demo, anybody have any questions? Okay. Oh, Angela.
Hi, yes, and you may get into this, I may be jumping the gun, but I was wondering if you were going to go through the budget application template at all on this one. I haven't gotten to that piece yet, but just wondering, because usually I will have a question, never fails.
Well, you know what? I didn't have that in here, but what we could do is I'll go back to the website and open it up from that link, and we can look at it and see if anyone has questions.
All right, thank you.
Okay. So, and that's it. Thank you for listening. And I'm going to now, I hope I do this right. I'm going to share. Wait a minute. All right, new share. And we're going to, where did it go? Nope, that's the screenshot. Okay, I had the portal pulled up and now I do not. So let me go back. Okay, you're not opening anything. You know, this just goes to prove. Oh, it's slow coming up.
Maybe because you're screen sharing. Sometimes my stuff gets kind of slow when I'm screen sharing.
Let's hope that's what it is. You know, it just goes to prove, what was it Forrest Gump said? You never know what's coming for you. Got up early, had breakfast, took my time, sat down on my computer, and it said, you have no internet. It's like, no, really, I do have internet. What's going on here? So we had to jump back and punt. Well, I have little dots moving across my screen, but it's not. It is not bringing up the link. Well, I'd like to say that, you know, I never have these kinds of problems, but, you know, some days it's worse. Some days, usually it's way better, but today is crazy.
Okay.
Chelsea, since mine's not moving, well, it's moving, it's not doing anything. Do you want to log in and share your screen and you can click and I can talk?
Sure. Let's give that a shot.
I don't know if that's a better solution, but I hate to keep people waiting while I'm struggling with technology today.
Well, let's try me screen sharing. Actually, let me make sure I'm pulled up and logged in. I'm in the actual application. Is that what you're trying to show, or were you trying to show it from the start?
That's what I was trying to get into the actual application. Okay,
so how about continue? And we're gonna go here to Google Chrome. All right, can you all see my screen that says application at the top?
I can.
Yes.
All right, Bonnie, take it away.
Okay. So when you get into the actual application, here's the organization information. We went through some of this in the screenshots, and you'll see the character counts. And we broke it out, you know, into several sections. You know, your history, population that you serve, the geographic area to make sure that, you know, you're within Prince William County, your mission statement. And I will point out one thing. You'll see a little, like beside where it says mission statement, little icon there. If you have a GuideStar profile, You're not required to have one, but you can click on that and pull directly from your GuideStar profile if you have one, which just makes things a little bit easier for you to kind of cut it and paste it. But if you do not give it a second thought, that was just a perk, if you will, that this portal offers, but it's by no means any kind of a requirement. And the project information, what are you going to call it? It could be helping to feed those impacted by COVID in whatever area you're going to be serving. The name of the person who's responsible for the reporting is going to go here because we already captured the applicant's name in the organizational section. And then the amount requested. Now this is worth noting here because we have two ranges. For a micro grant, it would be $10,000 to $25,000. But then we up it to between $50,000 and $300,000 for all other grants. What we found out during CARES is that some organizations didn't need as much money as others. So we broke it out this way. And you'll put that in here. And then here's the budget and a place for you to upload the program budget. The next thing I want to note, it says upload most recently professionally prepared statements. And Chelsea, correct me if I'm wrong, you don't have to have a big expensive audit document in here. Your tax, your 990 will suffice for the statement.
Mm-hmm. Your 990 will suffice. If you have a balance sheet that's been prepared through QuickBooks, that will suffice. Any reconciled documentation that you have, if you have a, what is it called? This is where we need Reggie on this call. But not just your balance sheet, your
profit and loss. P&L.
That's it. Profit and loss.
P&L.
Any of those things that have been prepared and reconciled against your, your income versus your expenses, you can upload that in there. And that just gives us just some insight as to how well you manage your money. And if that's something that we would need to go over with you in terms of providing you with tips as to how you would have to track it or do your bookkeeping once you get awarded the funds.
Okay, the next one, this is, what is the problem that you are going to fix, the unmet needs? And you get more characters for that. And then how are you going to do it using these funds, the impact that you will make. And then here's where we get to which positions have you identified in your organization to execute this project? And will you need to hire staff or recruit volunteers? Because a hire for staff you can include in your grant request. Okay, how are you going to promote your project to your intended audience?
Can I ask a question here before we leave human resources? It asks whether you need to hire staff or recruit volunteers. We can also use contractors as opposed to hired employees. Is that correct?
Do you want to answer, Bonnie? Do you want me to answer?
Chelsea, I'm going to let you answer this one because I'm not 100% positive.
Yes, so you can contract out, like let's say, for instance, you have a program that's going to do employment support and you need to contract with someone to facilitate a training or a workshop. That is fine. You can do that. In terms of hiring, we say hire, but if you need to contract someone to do that staff versus bringing them on, as full-time or part-time W-2 employees, that's fine. You just have to make sure that you get all of the IRS paperwork that you would need from them. So if they're a 1099 contracted team member, make sure that you get that paperwork. but in terms of that, just how you plan to bring on staff. If you're going to
Okay.
contact people, then just include that in your proposal versus if you're going to hire folks, then put that in your proposal. But either
Okay.
way, it's fine. It's so long as you document it accordingly.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, Bunny, take it away.
Okay, so we did project promotion, accessing services. What is the process that you're going to use for residents in need to access your project services? Strategic partnerships. Now, this is one that you're going to want to kind of be looking ahead who you might partner with. For example, if you are, Chelsea mentioned doing some employment training and bringing in a contractor, who might that be? Or if you're going to do employment training, but you also are going to partner with an organization that could help you with, say, getting tools and clothing or steel-toed boots for your clients, who are those partners going to be? And put that in here and describe kind of the nature of that relationship and what each of you is going to do. So equity and inclusion. Describe the efforts to promote equitable outcomes, including how the project was designed with equity in mind. Please refer to the ARPA equity handout, which is on our website. For more information, click here. All you have to do is click, and then it'll take you right to it. And disproportionately impacted communities. Is your project specifically going to target disproportionately impacted communities? So please list them here. Please see the listed groups in the RFP reference. And again, you can click back to the website and get to that link. And then zip codes. This is where it gets a little bit tricky. Excuse me, particularly if you're operating a hunger relief project. There's areas, and we have a link on the website also to a map that shows you areas that are in one or more of our food have been identified as being in a food insecure zip code. Say that 10 times fast. Food insecure zip code. And you can link for more information. And then there's the qualified census tracts identified in the RFP. So there's differences in the information that you need to collect. Excuse me. Regarding these particular areas. If someone's in a recognized area of high food insecurity, you don't have to do means testing, and you don't have to prove that their situation was caused by COVID. However, if they're in a qualified census tract, you still have to do, oh, did I mess this up? You still have to do means testing. No, you don't have to do means testing, but you have to have documentation proving that their situation was caused by COVID.
Correct.
Okay. And if I didn't totally confuse you, you can go read it in the RFP, and it explains it more eloquently than I just did. So I see we have a raised hand, so maybe we ought to stop and take that.
It's me. This is Candace from Virginia Community Food Connections. And and just tell me if it's in, because I've watched most of the recording. I was out last week, so I didn't get to watch. I wasn't able to participate live, but I wanted to know if we have like examples of what that evidence needs to look like of COVID-19 impact.
We do. We've got some forms on the website, and Chelsea, maybe you want to explain in a little more detail.
Sure. So if someone has been impacted by COVID-19, how they might document that would be if they could show what their income was prior to the precipitating event. So let's say they got sick. Maybe they got sick with COVID-19 and they were earning X amount of money because they were able to go and work their hourly job every day consistently up until the time they got sick. They would provide maybe a pay stub, or maybe they would provide something, however they receive income. They would show what that was prior to them getting sick. And then they would show what that was after. That could be how they could show impact. Maybe it's not that they got sick, but they had layoffs from work, or their job closed, or they just weren't able to work as many hours. If they worked a job that, might have been closed due to the shutdown or had a reduction in hours, they could just show the difference between how things were and how things are now, or how things are at the time that they're applying. They can go back as far as to March of 2020. So when the pandemic started, they can't go back and show a precipitating event from before the pandemic, because this money is in response to COVID-19. So let's say somebody has been, experiencing joblessness or maybe homelessness prior to that event. That's not a qualifying COVID-19 related event. Maybe if it's something where, they had an increase in childcare, or their mortgage or their rent went up, so long as it did it within that time period between now or whenever they're going to be applying, between the time that they come to you for help and March of 2020, you can just show that before and after, and that's enough to suffice.
May I ask a question, please, Chelsea?
Sure.
What about fixed income individuals?
So if they're on a fixed income, all they have to do is provide that, award letter that they might get from TANF or Social Security or wherever, and show where there's been an increase to their expenses. So for instance, if you've got a household that maybe they're receiving TANF and they were able to make it off of TANF for all the time that they've had it and been receiving that benefit, but suddenly there was an increase in their utilities, their rent, their mortgage, their childcare costs. Now, you've got the kids and they had to quarantine, so the utility bill went up because more people were in the house throughout the day, or they had to get childcare to watch somebody because they had to work more hours, or whatever that would look like. Then you would just show that there's been some change in how their money is able to work for them. And it's all due to COVID-19. So if they have some other event, like maybe they're going through a divorce, or maybe there was a car accident, those things you can't necessarily tie to this money, because you just have to be able to show that whatever the issue was, it was related to the pandemic. I hope
Thank
that
you.
answers the question. You're welcome.
Okay, this is Florence Stewart with Advocates for Citizen Access. My question is on the grant focus areas. The mental and behavioral health, for example, we don't have a mental health practitioner on staff. However, we would like to have licensed mental health practitioners in the state of Virginia to provide services. Would that be considered a strategic partnership, or the contracting of a practitioner, or does it go in both places? That's one of the areas that I anticipate being able to address, and I was wondering if you had any examples with regard to that.
Sure. So it's going to depend on how you utilize them and how they partner with you. So we have had different programs in the past and different projects and grants that we funded where we had those licensed practitioners, where if they were doing it as a fee for service, and they could, break down what their hourly rate is per client, per patient that they have, per program participant that they have, then what you would do is in your project budget, and we have a link if you don't already have a project budget to how you could devise one. We have a template that you can use. You would say, we're going to have our mental health practitioner provide X amount of counseling services at, $50 an hour for 20 program participants. And so that's how you could break that down. Now, if you have formed a strategic partnership with an entity that can provide those services, or with a mental health practitioner that's going to donate that to you in kind, then you don't have to put any cost to that. That would just be where you would list that as a strategic partnership. So maybe you're going to partner with community services or, somebody else, a church or a counselor someplace. And what you could do is then list that there and say, our collaborative partnerships include us being able to make a referral to X counseling organization, and they're going to subsidize the cost of what that is going to cost them to provide that service. So it really just depends on how you've structured your project as to where you would record that information. And of course, you can record it both places. If it's something where you're going to be paying someone, it's a little bit less of a partnership and more of an expense.
Exactly.
But it's just kind of how you work together and what the dynamics are of your relationship with the service provider.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That's a great question. One thing I did want to point out to you, Bonnie, and then I'll throw it back to you to see if you have any questions in your box, are up here where it says accessing services and project promotion. We wanted to be really clear as to what those two things mean. So project promotion is, are you going to use social media? Are you going to put up flyers at the laundromat? Do you already have access to an audience? And you're going to send it out through, your phone tree or your listserv? And then accessing services, we want to know the steps that someone would take to actually get in contact with you. So is it, call this number Tuesday through Thursday between the hours of X. Someone's going to answer it. They'll pre-screen you, make you an appointment. Or is it you can just fill out everything online? Is it that you just have to meet with your case manager if you're already doing an existing program? What this is going to help us to do is just kind of get a picture of the ways that we can support Prince William County residents when they call us to say, well, we heard that you gave money to X organization. How can I get in contact to get those services? So those are the two differences in those questions. And I just want to clarify that.
Okay.
Hey, Bunny, that's all I had to add.
Okay.
Can I jump in with another question on the grant focus areas? This is Florence again. In the navigation and application support for rent and mortgage assistance, of course, the state has the Department of Housing and Community Development that makes available funds or a process to apply for funds for rent support or mortgage support, particularly if it was affected by COVID. And so those people, is that the venue, or is there an established venue? I should say, can it be that venue, or does it have to be an established venue under this program where you would assist people with rent and mortgage who were affected by COVID?
That's a great question. So it can be any venue. That is one that we use as an example because that is one that has probably the biggest pot of money. But if you know of any different housing assistance programs that might be based on industry, or that might be from federal sources or community foundation sources, there are different programs through like the Community Services Block Grant. There are different programs that HUD may have. Anywhere that you can, different churches have different funds set up. Anywhere that you can find money to help the folks. The goal is that if we were to pay for a staff person, then that staff person could help the citizen or the resident, I should say, the Prince William County resident, to access whatever services are available to them. So it doesn't have to be through the county program. It doesn't have to be through the state program. There are some instances in which there might be people who don't qualify for any of those programs. And then if that's the case, the last resort that you would have might be to help to pay for some rental assistance or mortgage assistance out of your project budget, but that really ought to be the very last resort. And the reason for that is because with the grant money that you have, it's going to be very limited, especially when you start talking about paying the cost of a staff person over the course of 3 years. That, $300,000 or $100,000, whatever the grant award is going to be, it's going to dwindle down pretty quickly. And so when you look at what all of these federal and state programs have, and even the county programs combined, their budgets are hundreds of millions of dollars. And so what we're saying is try to channel people to use those resources as much as you can where they're eligible for them.
Okay.
Because some of those programs can assist folks for 12 to 18 months. And so, if you can pay for a month here or a month there versus getting them to tap into something that can help them with their rent utilities for upwards of a year, then, number two is definitely better. But now everybody's not going to qualify. And one of the reasons that when we were meeting with these different groups and saying, kind of how can we help folks tap into those programs, some of the reasons that they said were things like literacy barriers, language barriers, people just not understanding what the application was asking for them to document and provide. And so that's really where you all as our grant partners will come into play, is helping people to understand how that process works and then how to get through it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
I am so happy that you all are asking these questions because, I've been with the Alliance for a month and a week now. And I am learning so much about this particular grant funding. I mean, I've got some grant background, but there's a lot of ins and outs to this. So I will tell you right now, I may not be able to answer all your questions right off the bat if you use our, grants at Alliance GPW email address to ask your questions. But I will find out because Chelsea's just a phone call away and our partners at the county are just a phone call away. So ask away. And if I don't answer you right away, we'll get it.
Yes.
You will get it.
Indeed.
But I'm learning a lot just listening to your questions because you're not going to be the only one asking these questions, and we'll get it into our FAQs. Okay, moving right along.
Okay, we're down at the bottom.
Okay, so here, drum roll, you have reached the end of the application form. If you're satisfied with your grant proposal, click submit. But once you have clicked, you can't edit anymore. So you see that, and I'm pointing, you can't see. I'm pointing, it says save application. So you can save it and you can go back and read it 5 or 6 times. Make sure that you're happy with it before you hit the submit application button. But if you have any technical difficulties or questions with the application process, we can help you out with that. Like I said, there's the written and the video tutorials available to you on that login screen. But I am right here and happy to help you if you have any questions. And if you have any further questions about the grant, you can email to grants@alliancegpw.org. And if I don't know, I'll find out.
Bonnie, I've got some questions in my inbox. Oh, Angela raised a hand. I think you should do Angela first, and then I'll read you the questions in the chat.
Okay. Hey, Angela.
Hi, yes, and I put this in the chat too, but I just wanted to make sure when you're uploading those prepared documents, I asked if you could upload more than one. Like if you have a 990 and a financial audit or review, like how many do you want? Or how many can I upload, I guess is the question.
There is a megabyte, millibyte, something limit on there, but I set it really high. So I think you can download multiple, but to be honest, I haven't gone through the grant portal from your side. So if you run into a glitch when you're doing it, let me know because I can still go back in and reset some things. So if you get to somewhere and you go, this just isn't going to upload, send me an email or call and I can go back into the portal. The one thing I like about this company that we're working with is their support is really, really good. So if I can't figure out how to fix it, I can ask them.
All right, very good. Well, I'd like usually save them to a PDF version and condense it as much as possible. So hopefully it'll all work well. Just want to make sure it's like more than one was okay.
Yeah, I think it's more the measurement than it is the number, if that makes sense.
That's
So
a good
there
question.
should be enough room in there. But let me know if it's not. Okay. Anybody else, or we'll go with Chelsea's chat questions.
So there's a question in here and it talks about geographics, about, I guess, the question that we had up here about what geographic area do you serve or does your organization serve, I think. And so the question about these two differences in questions are, what geographic area does your organization serve? That is just to help our grant reviewer to get a picture of what services you already do and what regions you already do. So there is nothing that says that you cannot start a new project in Prince William County. But if you have only served people in, Wichita, and suddenly you want to start up a brand new organization, a brand new program here, we will have follow-up questions as to how are you going to do that if you've never worked in this area before? So that kind of just gives us a picture of, to date, what has your organization been doing versus how are you going to translate that into Prince William County for Prince William County residents. If you've always been serving Prince William County residents, you can just say that there too. And then the question above it as to what is the population your organization serves, that is to help us get a picture of, do you serve people who have been incarcerated? Are you serving seniors, people with disabilities, children, people with mental health issues or housing issues, or do you serve anyone who comes to you and needs help? Just kind of to give us a picture of which group that is. Is it a special cultural group that you serve, a cultural identity group, or people that speak a certain language, people that live in a specific neighborhood? Anything that's going to help us to identify the community that you're serving within the Prince William County community is going to be really helpful. And then I'm looking to see if there are any more questions.
I do have a question. On the overview, the presentation that was given, there was a section on grant reporting requirements, which I think is excellent because that gives us a sense of what you're looking for on a monthly basis, which is excellent because it keeps us on track too. I guess my question is, say you're working with a population and the goal is to assist in applications for rent or mortgage, or to provide mental health or behavioral health. Is it a matter of identifying the quantity and the type as opposed to the outcome? Because outcomes we can't really measure. We're in a position to provide services or assistance, but the actual outcome, is that what you want here, or just the characterization of the population that's served and how many and what type of service?
What a phenomenal question. So when thinking about the difference between the outputs and the outcomes for something like mental health, we're not expecting people to be cured of whatever mental health crisis they might be going through because they met with you one time. Right. So definitely you would count your output. And for the purposes of your project, your outcome would be, how many people did you connect to a mental health counselor?
Okay.
And so the same with like mortgage and the same with rental assistance. How many applications did you submit on behalf of, your clientele? And ultimately, when we get to the end of our program period, our grant period, we would love to say, cycle back and say, what are your overall outcomes and what are your notable outcomes? I think is the question on the report. And then you could say, of the 500 applications that we submitted to, X program for rental assistance, we had 250 that actually got funded. And so that would be overall what your project's outcome would be. But from a month-to-month basis, if you just do your outputs, that's fine.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome. Oh, one new message, another question. Oh, it's on the reporting segment. That might have been your question that you just asked.
That was me.
Does
That's
anyone
me.
have a question for Bob and I?
That was it. Thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. That's a really great question. And we're going to go over reporting requirements at the reporting training on March 30th. And so how March 30th is going to work is right now you all are submitting your project proposals. We have a grant review committee that's going to start reviewing them around the Ides of March. Once that happens, then they'll have about 3 weeks to review them and make funding recommendations. Based on who they recommend for funding in terms of which projects, we will reach out to you all and let you know that you'll be advancing to the next aspect of this process, which is a grant reporting training. We are making sure everybody knows that there is a grant reporting training now, because by the time we notify you and when the training actually happens, it's only going to be like a 2-day window. So if you think you've got a halfway decent proposal, we're asking everybody to go ahead and save the date. It's March 30th. From 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. is the reporting training. And from 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. it's just networking and fun mingling time if you guys want to hang out with us and do some of that and get to know some of the other finalists. Once you all go through your reporting training, that training is going to be very comprehensive. So if you thought that the RFP information sessions were comprehensive when we started getting into qualified census tracts and zip codes and supporting documentation, this is going to be significantly more detailed in terms of that, because we've given you kind of more general examples about how you could prove something like a qualifying COVID-19 related event, or we talk about how you might document income. But in that training, we'll go over specific details and examples and scenarios and all that other good stuff. And depending on what your projects are that you submit, how you would have to document that. So for some folks, it's not going to be so much that they are providing services so much as they might need to purchase something, or they might need to construct something in support of some of those service areas. And that's going to look different, of course, if you have like a one-time purchase versus actually having to provide a service month after month. If you're going to be providing an actual service like a recurring service, whether it's childcare assistance or whether it's mental health services by group setting, all of those things have to be reported differently. We have different reporting requirements for projects that are going to be dealing with sensitive information. For instance, with something like mental health, with something like healthcare prescription medication, there are different ways that you would be able to document that without violating HIPAA that we'll go over. Okay. So we've got quite a bit to go over on the 30th. So what we want to do is just get you guys to the 30th. And then at the 30th, once we go over that training more in depth, we give you all the opportunity to see what your compliance needs are going to be and what your capacity is even more so to address those needs. And then we give you all your certification letter. We'll extend to you a certification letter. And that is when you opt to continue with the program and to partner with the Alliance and the county to administer your grant award. Or if you say, you know what, we're going to have to kind of tweak our project just a little bit to make sure that we can deliver on these compliance needs. We also had some groups with CARES and different funding programs that have said, you know what, this is actually not what I thought it was. And we're just going to opt to do something else maybe a little bit later and apply for funding a little bit later. So all of that is fine and dandy. So this is just to get you all through the first step. And if you find that you have questions about something that we didn't cover, the final rule, I don't know how many of you all have ever looked at it, but the final rule for ARPA that the federal government has pushed out, the guidance, is about 500 pages long. And so just because we didn't cover it doesn't mean you can't do it. So if you have questions about what an eligible expenditure is, project ideas that maybe we just have never gotten around to discussing, maybe you've looked on the county's website and you saw that the county wanted to prioritize some different things, then you can definitely reach out to us and we will see if you can do it. And Bonnie, I don't have anything else. I'm done, Bonnie, like for real.
I was just going to say one other thing to remember is if you've got something on your mind and you're like, okay, well, I'm not quite sure about this, but want to look at it some more, we're going to have another round of funding in 2023.
Mhm.
So you could do some prep work to get ready for that if you're not quite there yet.
Great point. Yeah. So
Anybody, anything else for the good of the good? I want to thank you for your patience with our little technological glitches, but you know, where there's a will, there's a way,
yes.
you know?
And thank you for your presentation. It was very informative. It brought a lot of things together. So thank you for your time and effort.
Thank you for joining us today. Thanks, guys. And so we're going to make this recording available on that same ARPA grant website. And if you have any questions you think about, please email grants@alliancegpw.org and we will help you to answer them.
Bye-bye.
Bye,
Have a great
guys.
day, everybody.
Have a good one.